have to start off this episode by apologizing for not recording an episode last week, but I have a good excuse. I was spending time with my family. I took some time off, and that is something I have a hard time doing. So today I thought what I would talk about, because I felt really abundant. I felt really abundant, just being with my family and not worrying about what was happening in my work world. And I haven't done that for a long time. I haven't taken that many days off in a row. I will say that I opened my computer to look at email, but not. I spent very little time on my computer. I have been accused, and rightfully so, of being a little obsessed and have been on my computer a lot when I've been around my family in the past. And so, I have to follow up with them and ask them if they thought Nanny was on good behavior, but they didn't complain about anything about me being on my computer. So they must have noticed I wasn't on it. So I didn't have everybody here the whole time. So I'll break down kind of how it went. And I thought of three things that I felt the most abundant about. So I narrowed it down to three different categories. So I'm just going to make this a fun episode about my abundant week with my grandkids. So how about that? And if you have grandkids, you can probably relate. I'll probably ask a few questions because, I have some questions about is this normal? Although I think it is. First of all, I had downtime. And downtime is such a necessary and vital part of what we do. We get very creative. I had so many ideas just from having downtime. Creative juices start to flow. Now, granted, I was preoccupied a lot of the time, but I did have some quiet time. So the grandkids slept in. How about that? They don't sleep in with their parents. That's one of the questions I have. Is that normal? I think that kids are worse for their parents because they know them so well. And I think they know me pretty well, but still it's a different environment. And so it was incredible. So what happened was my oldest daughter lives in Charleston. My youngest daughter lives in Northern Virginia. I live in Virginia. So I live 2 hours from my youngest daughter and 7-hour drive from my oldest daughter. So my oldest daughter has 4 kids, and they usually come a couple times a year, and they didn't come at Christmas because of COVID. So I did go down to see them, but the kids hadn't been up for a year. So I proposed that I fly down, because I wasn't going to drive. And plus I got rid of my SUV. So I can't really cart, kids in my new car. So I said, how about if I fly down and I fly the kids back with me? And she liked that idea. So I went down and spent 4 days with them, and then brought the kids, the 3 of her 4. So the 4-year-old, the 8-year-old, and the 10-year-old back with me. And it was kind of exciting for the 4-year-old because I've had the older 2 before, and they've come up. And the last time they did that, he was so sad. I think it was 2 years ago. So he would have been, but a 2-year-old, he was only 2, but he really was upset. He knew about it. So yeah, I don't think they came by themselves last summer. They might have come by themselves last summer, but that's not important for the story. They come on the airplane. They're super excited about coming on the airplane. And then they stayed with my husband and I I think we had 3 full days with them. And then my daughter and her husband and their 2-year-old flew up, and they stayed for a long weekend and then left. And then my younger daughter, and she has a 5-month-old baby and a 3-year-old, she and her husband came down for the weekend. So we had a big house full for 2 nights. 2 nights. So it was so funny how the pattern kind of works. It's I think my daughter was worried about her 4-year-old because he doesn't sleep really well, and he often gets up in the middle of the night. And she thought, of course, he's in a different environment. He's going to wake up and he's going to need Nanny to, cuddle with him and get him back to sleep. And so, I was a little worried about it too, but I'm like, oh my gosh, it's only 3 nights. I can deal with it. So And then he also gets up really early in the morning. And I saw that when I was down there visiting, like he would be the first one up in the morning, like 6 o'clock in the morning. So guess what? He slept. I was so abundant. I was so abundant feeling after the first night, just the first night and getting him. Well, of course, we got home late. The planes got delayed because of weather. We had a layover. So by the time we got home, it was like 11:30 at night, and he crashed on the airplane. It was hard to get him awake just to get him off the airplane. I cannot carry him. He's too big, number one, for me to carry. I've got a bum elbow right now. And I had a heavy backpack and his booster seat. So it was like I had to wake him up. It was like I felt like he was a frat boy. It was like a drunk frat boy. And it's like they're impossible to wake up once they're passed out, right? And so Emmett, wake up. And I finally got him half awake. And I stood him in the aisle of the airplane. And then like I put his backpack on him, and then he's like, the weight of the backpack made him fall backwards. It was like, seriously, he got awake enough that he could walk down the aisle, like stumbling, staggering down the aisle. And once he got outside in the fresh air, it kind of woke him up. So anyways, but he slept in every single day he was here. He slept till 8 a.m. like 2 hours later than normally. And he never woke up once in the middle of the night, not once. He had to have every light on, but I was like, fine, if that's what it works, so every light can be on. In fact, when my daughter came, he wanted the light on for her, and she went in after he went to sleep and turned it off. And guess what? He woke up in the middle of the night and he wanted the light on. So Nanny never did that. Nanny did what he asked, and he slept through the night. They call me Nanny and Grampy. So I was very abundant, felt so much abundance that he like so appreciative that he slept in, and they all slept in. The 8 and the 10-year-olds sleep in. They always sleep in. They're like teenagers now. So that was super, super rewarding for me. I felt like Nanny, like go Nanny. I'm the 4-year-old whisperer, right? So yeah, so I stayed off my computer. That was super abundant. And I got the kids, they slept great with me. This slept amazing. And then the third thing was, and this is kind of crazy, but maybe you can relate. I mean, maybe I think maybe it's crazy I think about it, but it makes such a difference. The house was like in such a disarray. And I think about, because it's one of the tenets of the 6 tenets of abundance that my favorite author, Sarah von Branach, even though it doesn't look like that when you look at you speak it different than it looks. So it's always a struggle for me to say her name. But yeah, she talks about the 6, and the one tenet is order, and how just a little bit of order makes us feel so like okay and abundant. It's like this craziest thing. But if you have grandkids, you know that when they visit or when you go to their house, there's like toys everywhere. I mean, any parent knows that. Their kids were like that, right? And to get them to straighten up, forget it. It's impossible. At least it was for me. It's not worth the struggle, honestly. It's just going to get messy again, right? But then when they can't find something, it's like, okay, well, it's here somewhere. So the house is like, somebody gave me this as a kind of a metaphor once. It's like somebody took a big wooden spoon and your house was like a salad bowl, and they did this big, like, they stirred the salad. That's what it's like. They stirred the salad of my house and everything was everywhere. So what is abundant with this is that once they left and once we got our house back into order, OMG, what a great, wonderful feeling that is. What a great, wonderful feeling to look around the house and have a neat house. It's just so nice. And I don't worry about it when they're here because they're having fun. Usually, when the house is like got toys everywhere, they're playing, they're entertained. It is a little stressful for my dog. I will say my dog, he's a 1.5 years now. So he's becoming less puppy, but he's still puppy. And you put a small toy on the floor, especially any kind of little animal, because we have a few plastic like animals. Like they have this farm carpet, like it's like a horse farm. There's a little horse figurines. Yeah, he'll pick up one of them and it will not have legs in a matter of 60 seconds. So anyways, he spent a lot of time. We have this like 4x6 like plastic pen, so he can see everybody. It's not like he's in a crate or anything, but he has to be separated. And so, he's a dog. I love him. He's like my child, but the kids are more important than him. So he has to spend a lot of time in there when they're here, but he loves them and he's good with them. And I'm so grateful for that. He just licks them to get death and they laugh because he's tickling them. So yeah. So that was just having, and it's so interesting because I think about the law of polarity. It's one of the universal laws where, it's like, if you have to have opposites, you have to have extremes of, the opposites to appreciate the other thing. Right. And so it made me think of the law of polarity because it was like to appreciate order, I had to have the disorder. The disorder was like, holy moly, I could not live like that every day. I guess when I was a mom, I did. Although I remember cleaning up because, I remember just, if I just like took these things off the floor and put them, we had this like toy closet and I would just shove everything in the toy closet. And then the house would look half decent. And that gave me pleasure. Even back when I was like a 23, 24-year-old mom, yeah, I got pleasure out of order. And I totally agree that should be one of the tenets of abundance because it's simple. It's simple to create order and you get such pleasure out of it. So that was kind of one of my big ahas, was how good it felt. And I love them and I'm so glad they were here. But I appreciated so much the silence and the order on the day they left. I wasn't sad that they left because I felt like we had an amazing time, quality time, did so many fun things. But then we had our house back. And my husband, I have to give him a ton of credit because he never had kids. So he doesn't, sometimes he's like, is this normal? He's like, he looks around the house. He's like, is this normal? I remember when my 10-year-old granddaughter was little, she came to visit and she was like, she wasn't talking yet really, but she was babbling and she was playing with some little, I think they were those little bears. What are those bears called? But she was playing with them and she was like, they were play acting and she was going, and she was not saying words. She was just like babbling, talking. And he said, is that normal? Is that normal? They do that? And I was like, yeah, well, like her nanny talks a lot. Her mom talks a lot. We're talkers and she can't talk yet, but that's her way of talking. Right. So she can't form words yet, but that's her way of talking. And so of course that's normal. She's just emulating what she sees the other women in her life do. So, but it's so funny. And you had to give him kudos because he created, it was so great. When you think about what you can make just to cobble together. But my 4-year-old grandson has been doing t-ball. So my husband went and I didn't even think of getting a t-ball set, but he had got a golf club and he took the putter off, I guess, and stuck it in the ground and got a can and put that on top. And we did have a wiffle ball and a bat, which was good. And he made that into a little t-ball stand. And not only him, but my 3-year-old grandson had fun with it. So they just had any 30-minute slot that you can fill with something fun like that is worth it. It's totally worth it. So the other thing, they made an amazing fairy village. I got a few things at Michael's, like fairy village-ish, but they found these little pieces of slate in our yard that was just in the ground. I don't know where it came from, just stuff they found in the ground. They're little like treasure hunters. They can find anything. Last year, my 8-year-old grandson he got sticks and put moss on top of the sticks and made trees. It was amazing. So they put these little, 1-inch by 1-inch pieces of slate and made these little pathways. They have like 4 branches of pathways and they all lead to a different fairy town. So cute. Of course, I don't want to take it down. We did, believe it or not, we did s'mores. We have a fire pit. We did s'mores. We did a fire in July. I was so sweating. I was trying to get my marshmallow like melted, and I was like sweating, like seriously sweating. I was like, I can't even get near this fire. I think next time they're here in the summer, we're gonna have to do it on the stove, because woo, that was hot. But they had fun with it, they had fun. They don't have lightning bugs. We have great lightning bugs, and we have a great yard for lightning bugs. I even got them in a little like lightning bug carrier, which it was just like for temporary, put them in there and then let them go, right? But they're so easy to catch and they're so much fun. They don't have lightning bugs in Charleston. So that was really fun. We took them to a safari park, a drive-through safari park. If you're ever in Virginia, off of 81, there's a natural bridge, which is a landmark, and it's the safari park at Natural Bridge is what it's called. It's right off the exit. It is amazing. It is like, we've taken the older ones there twice before. So this was the first time the 4-year-old went, but talk about a fun time. And then they have a little zoo there too, that you can walk around. They have penguins, and they have a huge bird thing where you can like feed the birds, and it's just really, really great. So what you do basically is you get food in buckets, you buy them, and you're in your car, and then you drive, and it's a lengthy drive. It's long. It's not just like 5 minutes and you're done. It's a long, many miles driving, winding through the safari park. And you have these buckets, and you open your windows in your car, and they come up to the car and they eat out of the buckets, just like these pellets. And it's crazy. They have water buffalo. The water buffalo are smart. They will grab with their teeth the bucket. We learned this with the water buffaloes. So you don't give them a bucket that's very full. You like it. So this time we got 3 buckets. In the past, we've only gotten 2. This time we got 3. So we poured a lot out into another bucket and gave the water buffalo like one with not a lot of food in it. As soon as we like put it in the window, he like yanked it, or she, I don't know if it's a male or female water buffalo, but all kinds of different, they give you a book. And I was so like appreciative. My 8-year-old grandson, I had an idea. I was like, I'm going to give him the book, and anytime we see an animal that we don't know what it is, then he can look it up and tell us. And he loved that job. He thought that was a great job. But they have so many different kinds of elk and zebras coming up to the car, and you can pet them. And they have these little some kind of deer that have their horns are like, feel like felt. Like, it was just so crazy fun. That was like a hit, a big hit. Oh, and the other thing, so when you think about like how it's like a bad situation, and you look for the abundance in it, and like what's the good in it, one thing that happened is when we got stuck, as I said, in Charlotte. So they live in Charleston, and the plane that we took stopped in Charlotte, and there were bad storms. So we got stuck, and we were supposed to have like a 2.5 hour layover, and like ended up to be like 6 hours. And I will say my grandkids were amazing. I couldn't have asked for better behaved grandkids. But by the end of it, it was like, when are we gonna, and right then, like it was time to board. So I was like, thank God they lasted that long. But what happened is we would have landed home before it got dark if we had gone on our scheduled flight. But because we had the layover, it was dark, and we took off in the dark. And of course, Emmett at 4 was passed out by the time we landed. But when we took off, he was awake. And he was so excited about all the lights. See all the lights. Look at the lights. And so it was so cool to see his perspective. When we took off in Charleston, he was like, oh, look at the little houses. And so it was just so sweet to hear that. But, if I'm trying to take a bad situation, I'm looking at, the abundance in it. Is what I thought of is, I could be pissed about the 6-hour layover, but instead I choose to look at how amazing my grandkids were and how well behaved they were. And that they got to witness the lights when they took off. It was so cool to have that experience. So, yeah. So, and the other thing that I thought was really worth mentioning, which is kind of cool, is my 4-year-old grandson faced his fear. And so we have a pool in our neighborhood, And they love going to the pool because the thing they like most about the pool is they like the grill. They like to order ice cream. We got some lunch and some ice cream. They always like, can we have ice cream at the pool, Nanny? And so they swam. We had fun. I swam, and Emmett wanted to go in the deep end. And it normally has a diving board, but the diving board is broken. So the diving area, which is 10 feet deep, they don't have a deep end like that in their pool at home. I think their deepest part, they have a slide. So I think it's like 5 feet maybe deep. So anyways, and so he knows it's deep because it's the deep end, and he was really scared about the deep end, but he wanted to go in the deep end. So I went over and sat on the edge with him, and I watched his brain working, and he's like, oh, it's so deep, Nanny, it's so deep. I want to go in the deep end, but it's so deep. And I said, well, what does it matter, Emmett? I said, when you go in the 4 foot, because it is like 3.5, 4 feet deep, you're over there, but you can't touch the ground. You can't touch the bottom of the pool. So why is it different over here? You can't touch the bottom of the pool here, but it's the same. The only thing that's different is that it's deeper. So then that's, but does it matter? Does it really matter that it's deeper? So, and then I saw the wheels turning. He's like, that kind of makes sense. So he was so cute, and he started getting the deep end, and then he like decided not to get in the deep end. So what he did, you know what he did? I thought he was very clever. He went over to the stairs and got into the shallow end, the 3.5 feet, and he swam. He has like the water wings, and he swam to the deep end, and then he swam into the deep end. So for whatever reason, he wasn't scared when he swam into it. He just didn't want to climb down into it from the side of the pool. And so that was a really cool way of him like facing his fear. I saw him face his fear. And then he and his brother, who they normally are like at each other's throats, like played for like 45 minutes. Plus they love my pool because they have no breaks. There's no breaks, and we have an adult pool. So normally breaks are so the adults can have some adult time in the pool. And so they love that. So they played I heard them playing like, I heard Emmett say to his brother, watch out for the shark. The shark's going to get you. So they were having so much fun together in the deep end. So that was kind of my highlight of my last week. And that's why I did not record an episode. I was thinking of recording an episode, but then I was like, I want to just focus on and be present with my kids and my grandkids. So that is what I chose to do. And it was totally worth it. I did want to get them to come on my podcast and interview. I think I said on my last abundance episode that maybe I'll get my grandkids to share what they think, what's abundant in their lives. What does abundance mean to them? And I asked one of them, want to do, and I would have if I, if they said yes, that would have been my episode last week. But they were like, no, I don't want to do that. So I got to pay them or something next time. But maybe at some point in the future, they'll join. Love for you to meet them. They're amazing. Of course, I'm a proud grandmother. But yeah, so I'd love to know how do you think that it's normal that like kids just like are better for their grandparents? Do you find that? Probably maybe if you see them all the time, maybe they're not as good for you because they're used to you. But I really feel like there's this nanny effect where, they're on their better behavior. If they were here for 2 weeks, it might be different, but they were super, super good for 3 days. And I know my husband was really, he enjoys them being here because he knows how happy it makes me. But we were also very, very thankful for the quiet house once they left. And it was also fun because we all love the Olympics. So we all like to watch the Olympics together. I hope you're enjoying the Olympics. Talk about, oh my gosh, the Olympics and the abundance of them like receiving and getting rewarded for the hard work that they've done and just the Olympic spirit, that the different countries celebrate each other and hug each other. And it's just beautiful to watch. It's just beautiful. I love it. So I hope you're enjoying the Olympics. I hope you enjoyed my episode about my time with my grandkids, and maybe you can relate. Yeah. When your house is in disarray, then it returns to normal, how appreciative you are. So until next time, go out in the world and look for the abundance in everything. Thank you so much for tuning into the Not Your Average Lives podcast. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe on iTunes if you have an Apple device. You can find free resources and learn what else I have going on at the moment that might interest you on my website at notyouraveragegrandma.com. You can also find me on Instagram or Facebook at Not Your Average Grandma. If you liked this episode, it would make my heart so happy if you could leave me a 5-star rating. You can also add a review to let me know what you like about this podcast, which will help spread the word about it to others who need a little midlife inspiration. As always, be you, listen to your inner voice, and focus on reigniting that lost spark so you can start living your own Not Your Average life.